Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Kristen Willard here, registered dietitian. I hope you guys all had a good week. I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about nighttime snacking. So I know that can be a common challenge for a lot of people to overcome. So I thought we would dive into it a little bit today and give you some suggestions and see if you find them helpful. So one of my biggest beliefs is that I am your guide, but you are actually your biggest teacher. So it's really, even if you don't work with me one-on-one, with your dietitian that you work with at the surgery center, what you do is you take their ideas that they have and then try them out. See if they work for you. Some may work and some may not, and that's totally okay. What is important though is to remain curious and try different options. So when I think of nighttime snacking, I tend to think of after dinner. It's going to be after dinner, and it's when you're winding down and relaxing. And a lot of times that's associated with turning on the TV and having some food. So let's talk about that. So one of the things that I see a lot of people doing is they try to substitute what they're eating. So they may still want to have that nighttime snack, but instead of maybe having chips or cookies or whatnot, maybe they're choosing a healthier option like yogurt or like cottage cheese and fruit. So those can be kind of like that would be like the first way to address it. But I really want to try to encourage people to go, or encourage you to go even deeper than that. Because even if you're eating healthier foods, if you're eating foods when you're not necessarily hungry or you already met your protein goals for the day, then essentially that still is extra calories that your body's been taking that it didn't need. So even though it's healthy, it still can be a little bit extra. And it's also leaving that pathway, that gateway open to, if you're continuing that routine, that maybe some other foods may kind of sneak their way back in over time. So it could be healthy for a month or two, but because that actual habit hasn't changed, sometimes those more calorie dense and more like fat, high carbohydrate foods can sneak back in a couple months later. So it's just something to keep in mind. So I always encourage people to go deeper and to look at what you are doing at nighttime. So I just did a live today or actually I did a story today on Instagram, and I talked about a new book that I was reading, and it's actually it's actually a parenting book. It's called The Whole Brain Child, and what it talks about is the implicit memory and the explicit memory. So first, I want to talk about the explicit memory. So the explicit memory is the part of your brain that you tend to just have your memories from. So if you're thinking about your graduation, if you're thinking about when your child was born, you think about the events in more of that sequential order and how they happened and different things that occurred during that event. The implicit memory is what I want to focus on right now. So the implicit memory is more of like the feelings associated with it, and also like the natural flow of events. So for example, in the morning, I take a shower, I brush my teeth, I tend to wash my hair the same exact way that every single day. The thing is, though, is I don't think about it, but my brain, my body already knows that's what I'm doing, and I'm thinking about other things. That's called the implicit memory, and that's buried deeper, and there is more of association. So we like to think of our brain as a file cabinet, but like in reality, it's actually your memory is more of associations. So what's going on at nighttime a lot of times is when you're having that nighttime eating, you may be sitting in the same exact place. So let's say the kids go to bed, or it's just the end of your workday and you sit down in front of the TV. It's actually the first start of that nighttime snacking is when you sit down on the couch or when you turn on the TV. So that is signaling to your brain that, okay, it's time to eat if you've been doing that before. And the reason is the psychologist in this book said neurons that fire together wire together. So what's going on is that a lot of times those neurons, they're all working together, they're all firing together because they've been working in that way for so long. And really the goal is to start changing those associations. And so there's a few ways that you can go about it. And of course, it doesn't happen overnight, as I'm sure you likely know. It's going to take constant time and effort to kind of reroute those neurons and those pathways. So one book from the Atomic Habits, he suggests that one thing that you can do is you can actually rearrange your living room. So rearrange your living room and have it kind of changes your brain, it kind of changes the environment a little bit, so it may not be as much of a trigger. Something else that you can do is start having a designated spot in the house that you're eating. So I've worked with patients before where they actually start seeing results from weight loss when they haven't even changed their diet. All they're doing is now having more of a designated spot in the house to eat. So they may always just eat at the dining room table. They're not necessarily limiting the types of food that they're going to have, but they're limiting where. And so they're building those pathways in their brain that when they're at the kitchen table, they can eat. Where on the couch, they're now taking away that association. So it takes time, it takes practice, but it's definitely something to consider. Another option is to go to bed earlier. So this is something that a lot of us overlook. When we go to bed earlier, we're gonna we sometimes we think about stress at nighttime. Sometimes we stay up late and our stress hormone, or I'm sorry, our we're tired, and so when you're tired, your cortisol levels can go up, and your ghrelin, that hormone they talk about in at the surgery center, can go up, and it makes you hungrier. And that can also last longer throughout the day, the next day too. So it's important that you're getting adequate sleep. So going to bed earlier not only is going to help uh, reduce the temptation of having any snacks, but it could also be improving your hormone levels as well. So hopefully you found those helpful. Those are so really kind of going over the basics is you can choose like a healthier food item. So we talked about cottage cheese, we talked about yogurt. Another option also is to have more, which works for a lot of people also is like more of like an herbal tea. So it's a calorie-free beverage, but they're still satisfying more of, those sensations in the mouth. Number two is starting to rework the pathways. So changing your environment, changing where you're eating, changing the sequence of events, and that could possibly help with stopping or reducing nighttime eating. And then three, going to bed early. So those are like my three main recommendations. I'm curious what you have and if you found any of these tips helpful. So I hope you all have a good weekend, and I will be on here again soon. All right, bye now.